Welcome to our deep dive into 4 Seconds by Peter Bregman.
Interesting title.
It is right.
Uh-huh.
This book is all about making little tweaks,
Little tweaks.
in our behavior
Okay.
to get big improvements in our work and relationships.
So it's about like those little habits we have.
It is, those little habits.
Like, I bite my nails or whatever.
Exactly, and how those tiny things can really impact the bigger picture of our lives.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the big idea here?
Well, Bregman starts with this concept of the 4-second pause.
4 seconds.
It's-
Seems kind of random.
It does, but stick with me.
All right.
He argues that those split-second decisions we make, when we react impulsively,
Like when I almost rear-ended that guy this morning.
exactly like that. Those moments when we're about to send that angry email,
Or say something we'll regret.
exactly. He says that just pausing for 4 seconds
Just 4 seconds.
can interrupt that automatic response and give us back control.
Huh. So it's like a circuit breaker for our brains.
It is. It's like hitting a reset button.
Interesting.
He even ties it to meditation.
Oh, like mindfulness.
Right, suggesting that practicing mindfulness
Makes sense.
can actually strengthen our ability to resist those knee-jerk reactions.
So we make better decisions.
Better decisions,
Stronger relationships.
all that.
Just from pausing 4 seconds. I gotta see this in action.
Well, he gives this great example about his kids flooding the kitchen.
Oh, no.
Yeah, total disaster.
Uh-huh.
He was about to yell, but he caught himself.
They had the 4-second pause.
He paused for 4 seconds, and it totally changed his response.
Instead of yelling.
He took a breath, assessed the situation, and helped his kids clean up.
Okay, so he responded instead of reacting.
Exactly. Responding is thoughtful.
Right.
Reacting is just impulsive.
Got it. So it's not just about counting to 4, it's about...
It's about awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing those triggers,
Uh-huh.
creating that little space between the stimulus and our response.
Interesting. This kind of reminds me of his take on goal setting.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
It's pretty unconventional.
It is. It's not your typical SMART goal stuff.
He actually challenges the idea of setting specific, measurable goals.
Huh, why that?
He argues that this laser focus...
Laser focus.
Yeah, that intense focus can lead to some pretty bad consequences.
Like what?
Well, he uses the example of the Ford Pinto.
Oh, that's a classic case study.
It is. The company was obsessed with hitting a specific weight and price point for the car.
Okay.
And in doing so, they overlooked some serious safety issues.
Which led to...
Tragedy, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a sobering reminder that goals can have unintended consequences.
They can.
So if traditional goal setting is out, what's the alternative?
He suggests focusing on broader areas of focus.
Areas of focus.
Yeah. Instead of, I want to lose 10 pounds,
You'd say.
I want to prioritize my health and well-being.
So it's about the big picture.
It is. It's about direction rather than destination.
Makes sense. It allows for flexibility, right?
Absolutely, and less pressure.
Less pressure if you don't hit that exact target.
Right.
This reminds me of another point he makes.
Oh, what's that?
The distinction between motivation and follow-through.
Oh, yeah, I loved that part.
We often think they're the same thing.
But they're not.
He tells this story about his friend Byron.
Byron.
Yeah, Byron was super motivated to get back in shape,
Okay.
but he struggled to get to the gym.
Oh, so it was a follow-through problem.
Exactly. He had the motivation, but not the system to actually do it.
It's like all those books we buy and never read.
It is. Good intentions don't get results. Action does.
So how do we tell if it's motivation or follow-through?
That's the key question. Are we lacking the spark?
Mm,
Or do we need the system to bridge the gap?
I like that. It's like a diagnostic tool.
It is.
Ah,
And once we know which one it is, we can find the right solution.
makes sense. Now, this next idea is a little counterintuitive.
What's that?
Bregman suggests that sometimes the best thing to do is nothing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing, especially in our always on, always doing culture.
It seems almost radical.
It does, right?
He had this chronic tendinitis.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was awful.
Hmm.
And he tried everything
Doctors, specialists, everything.
until he finally just stopped
Stopped.
all treatment.
Wow.
And guess what?
It got better.
It started to heal.
So sometimes trying to fix things makes them worse.
It's like we get in our own way
Our bodies have an amazing capacity to heal.
if we just let them.
This kind of connects to what he says about managing expectations.
Oh, how so?
Well, he tells this story about his friend Rob.
What happened to Rob?
He was on a boat trip and his cell phone wasn't working.
Oh.
He was furious.
Well, yeah, we rely on those things.
He was expecting it to work flawlessly.
And it didn't.
Turns out, There was a widespread outage.
So it wasn't his fault.
Exactly. And once he knew that, his whole perspective shifted.
He could let go of the frustration.
Exactly.
So it's about recognizing when our expectations are causing us stress.
Right. Because sometimes we can't change the reality.
But we can change our expectations.
I like that. So we have a choice.
We always have a choice.
Now, I love what he says about rituals.
Me too. Rituals are so powerful.
They are. He uses this image of a samurai drinking tea in The Last Samurai.
Oh, I remember that scene.
Yeah.
Such stillness amidst the chaos.
Exactly. That simple ritual brings a sense of grounding and presence.
And he suggests we do the same in our daily lives.
Especially at work.
Right, because work can be chaotic too.
It can.
So incorporating little rituals,
Like what?
making coffee mindfully,
Okay.
taking a few deep breaths before starting a task.
Creating a mental transition.
Exactly. It helps us approach our work with intention.
I'm going to try that.
This ties in nicely with his emphasis on preparation.
Oh, being prepared.
Yes. Not just for the expected, but for the unexpected, too.
Like a Boy Scout.
He uses the example of a kayaking trip in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
They had a daily ritual of anticipating potential risks.
Even if they seemed unlikely.
Exactly. It wasn't about being paranoid. It was about being proactive and prepared.
So we should approach each day asking,
Am I prepared for this day?
I like that.
It helps us think about potential challenges.
And come up with solutions.
And this leads to another powerful tool.
What's that?
Resetting.
Resetting. Like a computer.
He uses this funny story about troubleshooting his wireless router.
Okay, I can relate to that.
He had to wait a full minute for it to reset.
A whole minute.
And in that minute, his perspective shifted. It gave him a chance to detach from the problem.
So it's like a forced timeout.
It is. And he realized that these little resets are crucial.
So we don't get overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Taking a 5-minute walk.
Or listening to music.
Anything to break free from that always-on feeling.
I need to do that more often.
And finally, he encourages this profound shift in mindset.
Oh, tell me more.
From performance-driven to experience-driven.
Interesting. What does that mean?
He was given this great advice before his wedding.
Oh, what was it?
It's not a performance, it's an experience. It helped him let go of the pressure to perform.
And just enjoy the moment.
Exactly. It's about internal fulfillment, not external validation.
So it's about being present.
It is. It's about savoring the journey.
Rather than obsessing over the destination.
That's a great way to put it.
So in this first part, Bregman's laid the foundation for a more mindful life.
He has. He's given us tools to handle those impulsive reactions.
Their second pause.
Right. And he's challenged us to rethink our approach to goals.
Broader areas of focus.
And to manage those pesky expectations.
Accepting what we can't control.
And perhaps most importantly,
What's that?
embracing the power of doing nothing.
Sometimes that's the best solution.
Incorporating rituals.
For grounding and intention.
And prioritizing preparation.
For anything life throws our way.
And that shift from performance to experience.
That's a game changer.
It really is.
So much to think about already.
I know, right? And we've only just begun.
I can't wait to see what's next.
All right, let's dive into part 2.
Okay, what's on the agenda?
Relationships.
The human connection stuff.
Exactly. It's a crucial part of, well, everything.
It is.
And it's easy to neglect those connections in our busy lives.
I know, I'm guilty of that.
Bregman reminds us how important strong relationships are.
For our well-being?
Our happiness, even our professional success.
He backs it up with research, too.
He does. He talks about studies showing that people with close friends at work
At work?
are more engaged and productive.
Really?
And they even earn higher salaries over time.
Interesting. So those team-building exercises might actually be worth it.
Maybe so.
Makes you think.
But beyond the workplace,
Okay.
Bregman encourages us to shed those masks we wear in social settings.
Masks, what do you mean?
You know, those carefully constructed personas.
Oh, trying to impress everyone.
Exactly. He talks about going to a conference
Uh-huh.
and feeling this pressure to present this polished image.
Okay, feel that.
So he decided to experiment.
What do you do?
He just introduced himself as Peter.
No titles, no bragging rights.
Nothing. Just his name.
Bold move.
And you know what?
People loved it.
People were drawn to his authenticity.
So being vulnerable is actually a strength.
It is. It disarms people.
Makes sense.
Mm.
We connect on a human level.
Exactly. Now, he also talks about those times when we get hung up on how someone says something.
Instead of what they're actually saying.
It's like we're more focused on the tone of an email
Well, the way someone delivers feedback.
than the actual message itself.
Oh, I do that all the time.
He tells this story about his friend who got a breakup text.
Ouch, that's rough.
And he was so fixated on the fact that it was a text.
Instead of the fact that she was breaking up with him,
It's like we get distracted by the package.
instead of opening the gift
Bregman encourages us to pause in those moments
when we feel triggered.
and refocus on the message itself.
Separate the wheat from the chaff.
I like that.
Mm.
Now, he also talks about finding inspiration in other people.
Okay.
He suggests shifting our focus from spotting flaws
Which is easy to do.
to actively seeking out those who embody traits we admire.
So instead of focusing on what we don't like,
We look for what we want to cultivate.
he actually takes pictures of these inspiring people
What?
and keeps them on his fridge.
No way.
It's like a personal hall of fame.
I love that. Visual reminders of the good stuff.
It's a great idea. Now, what about those difficult relationships?
He addresses those
The
too.
ones that drain our energy.
He tells a story about a colleague who snapped at him.
Yikes.
It left him hurt and confused.
Understandably.
And he realized that trying to change this person
Was a losing battle.
it was. So he did something else.
He accepted them.
He accepted them as they were.
Even with their flaws,
He recognized that their behavior,
was their own issue.
and he couldn't control it.
That takes a lot of maturity.
It does. It's about choosing our battles.
And recognizing that some things are beyond our influence.
This ties into another interesting point.
What's that?
Choosing listening over arguing.
He doesn't like a good debate.
He actually had this epiphany
Tell me about it.
after getting a parking ticket.
Oh, I hate those.
He realized that arguing,
Never gets you anywhere.
it rarely changes anyone's mind.
It just escalates the situation.
Exactly. So he advocates for listening,
Really? Listening.
trying to understand the other person's perspective.
Even when you disagree.
It's about creating dialogue, not division.
That's a tough one, but so important.
Now get this.
Okay.
He suggests taking the blame.
Even when it's not your fault.
Even then,
Why would you do that?
he argues that blame prevents us from learning.
How so?
If we're always pointing fingers,
We never take responsibility.
and we miss the opportunity to grow.
He gives an example of a colleague.
Who blamed the CEO for everything.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It is. It prevented him from taking ownership.
And learning from his mistakes.
So Bregman says, own your mistakes.
No matter how small.
It shows humility and a willingness to learn.
Those are valuable qualities.
This leads to another insight. We all have different rules of engagement.
For communication.
He compares it to visiting a foreign country.
Where you have to learn the customs.
Yeah, exactly. We need to recognize that people communicate differently.
And adapt accordingly.
It's about being curious.
And open-minded.
Now, he also talks about receiving feedback.
Feedback can be tough.
It can, but it's essential for growth.
He emphasizes being a great receiver.
What does that mean?
Someone who can absorb feedback constructively.
Even when it's hard to hear.
He describes a colleague who did this masterfully.
Really? How?
She created a safe space for open communication.
So people felt comfortable giving her feedback
And she was able to receive it gracefully.
without getting defensive.
It's a skill we can all learn.
Absolutely. And then he talks about empathy,
Empathy.
prioritizing empathy over problem solving.
When someone's upset.
He tells this story about his friend's daughter.
What happened?
She was disqualified from a swim meet.
It's heartbreaking.
He resisted the urge to offer advice or reassurance.
And just listened.
He just sat with her and validated her feelings.
That's powerful.
Sometimes that's all we need.
A listening ear, a compassionate presence.
This connects to his point about listening for the unspoken.
Unspoken.
Those subtle cues that convey more than words.
Like body language.
He gives this simple example about his wife asking him to pack shampoo.
Shampoo.
It turned out to be about more than just shampoo.
What was it about?
Feeling unseen and unappreciated.
Yeah, the emotional labor.
By tuning into the unspoken, he was able to address the real need.
That's deep. It's about reading between the lines.
And finally, he talks about expressing appreciation.
Gratitude.
Yes. He tells a story about a friend
Go on.
who was overlooked for promotion.
Because
He never acknowledged positive feedback from his CEO.
he was too busy trying to prove himself
He forgot to simply say, thank you.
and miss an opportunity to connect.
It's a reminder that appreciation goes a long way.
It strengthens relationships.
It shows that we value the other person.
This whole section has been eye-opening.
It has so many valuable insights into building stronger connections.
I'm already thinking about how I can apply these ideas in my own life.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
about being more mindful, more
Sure.
intentional,
And more present in our interactions.
I can't wait to see what part 3 brings.
Me neither. Let's keep going.
Okay, ready for the final installment.
Let's do it. What's Bregman got for us in this last part?
Part 3 is all about optimizing our work habits.
Okay, taking those mindfulness skills and relationship lessons into the office.
Exactly. He starts by acknowledging the challenges of the modern workplace.
I can only imagine it's a whole different world than it used to be.
Open plan offices, the constant barrage of emails.
Always connected, never truly off.
It's tough to find focus and stay grounded.
He jumps right into a story about a hair salon owner.
Oh yeah, tell me about that one.
This owner handled a really difficult client situation with such grace.
I remember that, even with all the chaos around her.
She stayed calm, she stayed professional.
It's a powerful reminder that we have a choice in how we respond.
Even when things are crazy around us.
Especially in those open plan offices where distractions are everywhere.
So true, it's like a constant test of our composure.
And then he tackles this thing we all do.
Comparing ourselves to others.
Bingo. It's so tempting to get caught in that trap.
Especially at work, where everyone's vying for recognition.
He uses this funny analogy.
The America Bowl.
It's hilarious, comparing presidents to Super Bowls.
As if you could actually rank them.
It highlights the absurdity of those comparisons.
We're all so different, with unique strengths and weaknesses.
It's about leveraging those differences, not trying to erase them.
Celebrate the diversity of thought and experience.
That's where true innovation comes from.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what about those negative coworkers?
Oh, we all have them.
The ones who complain about everything?
They can really drain your energy.
Bregman had this realization while talking to a friend.
Who's being super negative.
Yeah, about their workload.
He noticed that responding negatively with her only fueled the fire.
Makes sense. Negativity breeds negativity.
But offering a more positive perspective helped shift the energy.
It's like choosing to focus on the solution instead of the problem.
Exactly. And then he presents this idea that might seem counterintuitive.
Let me guess. Doing nothing.
Close. Letting people almost fail.
Isn't that a bit risky?
He argues that it's actually essential for growth.
How so?
Well, he tells this story about teaching his daughter to ride a bike.
Without training wheels.
Yep, those inevitable falls were part of the process.
They helped her learn.
And it's the same at work.
Letting people make mistakes.
Allows them to develop resilience and resourcefulness.
As long as those mistakes aren't catastrophic.
Right, it's about calculated risks and learning opportunities.
This makes me think about his emphasis on supporting others' success.
Oh, that's a big one.
He talks about his colleague Barbara.
Who focused on helping others instead of just promoting herself.
And it paid off.
It did. She created a culture of collaboration.
Where everyone thrived.
True leadership is about empowering others.
Not just climbing the ladder yourself.
And then there's this concept of sharing the glory.
Giving credit where credit is due.
He noticed this thing at Sundance Film Festival.
Oh yeah, everyone wanting to take credit for the movies.
But filmmaking is such a collaborative process.
It takes a village.
Recognizing and celebrating everyone's contributions is key.
It builds a sense of shared accomplishment.
Now this next one is interesting.
What's that?
Taking responsibility for your colleague's work.
Wait, even if it's not your fault?
He uses the example of getting the wrong sandwich at a restaurant.
Okay, I've been there.
Instead of just complaining to the waiter,
he did what?
He saw it as a breakdown in the system.
So she took ownership of the problem.
Even though he wasn't the one who made the mistake.
That's a different way of looking at it.
It's about seeing the interconnectedness of things.
And then he encourages us to offer help freely.
Even when we're swamped ourselves.
That's tough sometimes.
He says those acts of generosity actually reduce our own stress.
Really? I think it would add more to our plates.
It's about shifting to an abundance mindset.
Instead of scarcity.
And then he talks about prioritizing outcomes over processes.
Meaning?
He was delivering hurricane relief supplies.
Oh, wow. That's important work.
And he ran into all these bureaucratic roadblocks.
So frustrating.
You realize that sometimes you have to break the rules.
To get things done.
To achieve the desired outcome.
It's about being adaptable, finding workarounds.
Then he talks about zeroing in on high-impact work.
The stuff that really matters.
He compares it to his friend Dave.
What was Dave up to?
Dave was eating healthy foods.
But he wasn't getting the results he wanted.
Turns out, he was focusing on the wrong things.
He wasn't looking at the big picture.
It's about being strategic, making sure your efforts are aligned with the bigger goals.
Working smarter, not harder.
And he wraps up with some insights on giving and receiving feedback.
I'm all ears. That's always a tricky one.
He talks about being helpful, not just nice.
I like that distinction.
He tells this story about his friend James, who struggled to give critical feedback,
Avoiding those tough conversations.
and it ended up hurting the team.
So honesty, even when it's difficult, is crucial.
It's about being clear and compassionate.
Offering suggestions for improvement,
And finally, he encourages us to accept the gift of criticism.
even when it stings.
He shares his own experience of getting harsh feedback on an article,
Ouch.
but he recognized that even negative feedback can be valuable.
If we're open to learning from it.
It can help us grow.
Wow, what a journey this has been through 4 seconds.
It really has so many practical takeaways.
From managing our impulses to building stronger relationships.
And now optimizing our work habits.
It's like a toolkit for a more mindful and productive life.
I'm still thinking about that 4-second pause.
It's such a simple but powerful concept.
And the idea of shifting from performance to experience.
That really resonated with me.
Me too. It's about finding fulfillment in the journey itself.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to reflect on.
I'm feeling inspired to put some of these ideas into practice
Me too. It's all about taking those small steps.
and seeing the ripple effect they create.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
It's been a pleasure exploring 4 seconds with you.
Until next time.
See you then.